listening to the Esq.Marketing podcast, hosted by Matthew Lauren, president of Esq.Marketing, where he features successful solo and SMB law firms from all over the United States. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hey, I'm Matthew Lauren, president of Esq.Marketing, and you're listening to the Esq.Marketing podcast, where I feature successful solo and SMB law firms from all over the United States. This episode is brought to you by Rankings.io and the Rankings.io podcast with host Chris Dreyer. Speaking of successful lawyers, today I have the pleasure of speaking with Brandon Leopoldus, founder and CEO of Leopoldus Law. Brandon has worked with Major League umpires, Super Bowl champions, NBA veterans, and collegiate athletes. Mr. Leopoldus is currently working with a number of businesses to tackle the COVID economy, issues that have included PPP loan applications and usage, generating new revenue streams for businesses forced to suspend operations, finding creative ways to remain open for business, significant renegotiation of debts and liabilities, and restructuring future agreements to plan for unexpected and uncontrollable events. Brandon, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Man, as I read your website, it's super interesting. You work with a lot of well-known athletes, I see.
Yeah. It's one of those things where as a kid, I never thought that I'd be working with some of the people that I'm working with now. And those athletes that were famous, back when I was, an impressionable young man, now I know some of them and I'm friendly with them. And you got to pinch yourself every once in a while. It just gets to be a little surreal.
That's great. Yeah, you get to work with people you like and sort of live out your dream. So take me back to the beginning of when you started your law practice. I'm always interested about what the story is behind successful attorneys when they start out and then when they get to where they're at.
Sure. Well, I think, rather than just start when I opened the doors, for me, my entire sports law type career started when I was a kid, where my sister grew up in Colorado Springs, and my sister, who's about 2.5 years older than me, was an Olympic level gymnast. She was the first elite level gymnast in the state of Colorado. And so she was on one of the national teams in like the early 90s. So you think between the Barcelona and Atlanta Olympics. And so all those girls on like that team that won in Atlanta, like the Carrie Struggs of the world, were kind of the pain in the butt girls at my sister's sleepovers that would make fun of me. And I was always, I wasn't the athlete in my family. Clearly that was my sister. And so I just thought me going to Little League and my sister going to the Olympic Training Center were kind of the same thing. I didn't have the reality that some age and experience provide. So I just figured we're both playing sports. And so when we'd go pick her up and I was waiting for her, I'd be shooting baskets on the Olympic basketball court or, hitting the heavy bag at the Olympic boxing gym. And nobody was going to tell me no because my sister's on the national team. I kind of had free run of the place. It was great. And so that became kind of my norm. And as she went to Penn State on a full ride scholarship, and that was wonderful. It was great for my family. We weren't going to be able to afford Penn State. And for me, I started umpiring high school baseball because I wasn't good enough. I wasn't big enough to even make the high school team, but I still wanted to be involved. And so I started umpiring, Little League, and I loved it. I had no idea what I was doing, but I loved it. And I worked my way up to working high school games before I actually graduated high school. And I decided this might be pretty cool to do for a living, primarily because I had met some of the AAA umpires that were coming through Colorado Springs at the time. And they had kind of explained to me what umpire school was and that sort of stuff. So I go to umpire school after a year of college. I dropped out early to go pro, which sounds very cool to a 19-year-old. Not so cool when you're now in your 40s and you look back on it. That's probably not a wise educational decision. But I loved it. I got to travel around the country, and I had the kind of a unique skill where you can yell at me and I can still focus on the things I need to get done. And so I worked in the minor leagues for 5 years, bouncing around everywhere from Appalachia to, the California coast. And so I got to experience baseball from a perspective where it wasn't so much the cool factor. It's not what you see on TV. It's the lifestyle of being injured every day. And how do you go on the field after a 9-hour drive where the car broke down, And, you know, you're watching managers go through marital issues and they still have to be there. And, you know, players who have sick families, they're missing graduations and all the really non-fun stuff about sports, you really start to understand whether or not you want to work in that space. And so I got released and I decided I'd go to law school because that was a way to get a probably a well-paying job. And in law school, I started to realize that why would I want to reinvent myself and become some, you know, tort lawyer and litigator. And instead, I'll go ahead and just stick to the space that I knew. All those people that had really provided me such a great opportunity without me even knowing it, and give that experience. I want to work with those folks because I get to give back to that next generation of sports. And so that's why I wanted to start working in sports. And so that's really when I started my firm. That was my focus, and I had some connections in the space, but really the firm didn't grow just because I had said I, you know, have some experience in the space. It grew because of those networks that you build and how you actually are able to provide value to people even before their clients or just as they become connections and referral sources.
That's a great story. I really like all that stuff about you talked about with your sister. I mean, that reminds me of I have some young children and you know, they're at each other's sporting events, but that's really neat. You're able to experience all that and see it from a point of view that wasn't sort of jaded by, you know, like you said, experience and age. I heard in your story, so you met some umpires as you were doing that kind of work, and you bounced around, you met people along your way. So it sounds like you sort of built up your business before you even had a business, because all these connections you were making, you sort of went back and leveraged those after law school.
Yeah, you know, building a business isn't just, you know, kind of like running a race. When the gun sounds and you start running, you've done all this work getting to where you are. You're still a person, right? Even though your business is brand new, you are what people think of you. So if people trust you already, they're going to look out for you. They want you to be successful. And even in a law field where I work in a space where these are very serious situations and the trust level has to be through the roof for, you know, a professional athlete or an actor to tell you some of their deep, dark secrets. They have to trust you inherently. And some of it may come from their business manager, their agent saying, hey, you can trust this guy. But oftentimes it comes from that years and years of just being a honest broker in whatever you're doing and just being a good person. And you're going to gravitate towards those people you know, like, and trust anyway. And so for me, I knew a bunch of people and it worked out.
Do you have an example of how networking has helped in your later business, like how it's helped shape your business?
Absolutely. So one thing that I did early on was I had teamed up with an insurance broker where this guy does personal lines insurance out of Florida. Not, you would think that about as exciting as watching paint dry, but this guy and I, we shared a lot of the same philosophies that you need these people in your life, right? Insurance folks always need lawyers, and lawyers always need insurance folks. And we started trading referrals back and forth of, you know, hey, you should know this person. Oh, this is a good person for you to know. And we had that same kind of energy and mindset. And we started a networking business where we brought good people that are working with athletes, entertainers, high net worth individuals into the same room that had the same mindset of a growth mentality for the masses, right? We wanted to make sure that we all knew that everybody could be successful and who was good and who was bad. And we wanted to vet folks because we wanted to enjoy the people we were around. And it wasn't so much for the referrals, right? It wasn't so I could get a referral from a private banker. It was because we focused on networking with those people that could benefit our clients and that had experience with our clients in other areas. So I don't do estate planning, but I needed to know a bunch of estate planners who had experience with, say, NFL players. Most people don't know that the life expectancy of NFL players is much shorter than the average person. So if we go in and have a financial advisor just because we like them handle an NFL player, they're probably not going to know what the pension program looks like, what the disability policies look like, and what the financial outlook and lifestyle is for an NFL player. So I need an estate planner that understands that. as well as what a financial advisor that really understands the nuts and bolts of that and isn't impressed by the jerseys anymore. They're really focused in on helping that segment for whatever their foundational reason is. And so when we started this company, that's where my business was able to really grow, because I had a different perspective as well. With what I do, I really try and focus in on how you can help the entire athlete in their business by just doing some really simple techniques of starting an LLC and running a business and building a brand. And so if I know I know all of those things about how to do that, I can find the publicist, I can find the brand strategist, I can find the website folks to help this athlete. And if I have all those outlets, that athlete comes to me and says, we're going to build a brand. We probably got it referred from an agent or a business manager. And I can say, let's plug in everybody. This is the game plan. Here's how we do it. Now you become a solutions shop. You're no longer just a lawyer. They don't know if they have a legal problem or a financial problem. They know that you are going to help them solve whatever problem it is. And if you have those outlets to third parties, you're going to receive some of that social proof credit, and everybody's going to benefit from that.
A lot of the attorneys I talk with, Brandon, they're working at a firm. They're thinking about going off on their own. That's kind of like the common theme before they start their firm. What are some strategies that they could leverage related to networking that would help them along that path?
It's never too early. Number one, it's never too early to begin to develop a network that is going to be in that same space as your ideal client. So if you're a car accident attorney, you know what? Getting some chiropractors and some rehab specialists and all of those type of folks that may deal with the same type of client that you're looking for, you're going to be able to refer each other business, and they see how you can be valuable to them, right? So I always give the example that if every time you see me, I hand you $10, sight unseen, no questions asked, you're going to hang around me and wait for that $10 every time. And so if I can be that source of referrals for, say, a rehab specialist for car accidents, they're probably going to try and keep that gravy train going with me, and they're going to refer me some business, and we could probably become great friends doing so. So networking, start early. Even if you don't have an idea of what you want to do with your own firm, you're just kind of a general lawyer, that's okay. Get to know some people that are going to have a like mindset, that are in that same space with you, and that are maybe about your same age or experience level. You want to grow with that network that you have. So get to know a lot of people in a lot of different industries and find people that you know, like, and trust, and grow with them.
Brandon, you seem really naturally charismatic and friendly. So I'm sure this all came really easy to you, and maybe you didn't even have to think about things to do and not do. But do you have any examples of stuff you've seen attorneys or even anybody else do that's not great for the networking strategy?
Yeah, social media is one of those things where it can be a blessing and a curse. And especially in today's political climate, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. I don't care what your views on any specific thing are. Oftentimes you can alienate half of your customer or connection base by talking one way or the other about slamming politics or doing stuff like that. I think politics should be left for the dive bar, and your social media should be a one-way conversation until you want it to be a two-way conversation about things that you have some expertise in. You want to build your credibility no matter where you are. So that would be number one. If you're in politics, you're a lawyer in politics, I guess that kind of defies logic there. But outside of that, you really want to make sure that you're not offending people. Your job isn't to offend people. Your job is to help people solve their problems. And so if you focus in on that, the second thing I see is when lawyers, you go to the bar association meetings, and that can be a great source of referrals, even though a lot of lawyers look at it as that's where your competition hangs out. Well, competition is one thing, but if you look at it and understand that there's a lot of cases. So I give the example that if I have 50 individual athlete clients, I am overwhelmed at my firm. Well, give or take in the United States, there's 12,000 professional athletes at any given time. What do those other 11,000 plus athletes do for lawyers? I only have to get 50 of them. And I don't have 50 of those clients. So I look at it and I think, you know what? If somebody lands Patrick Mahomes as a client, good for you. Let's high five and celebrate that for you, because I don't want the Patrick Mahomes types anyway. I want that second guy at the end of the bench. I want somebody that's on a year-to-year contract, because then we have more ability to help them and create some impact. Patrick Mahomes, he would eat my practice for lunch, and I would be more reliant on him than he is on me. And so I have a different client base. So understand that it's not just a competition. When you go to the bar association events, talk about what you're doing. Find some ways to collaborate with lawyers that are in different spaces. And then complaining about clients. We see this a lot where there might be a lot to complain about, but when all you're doing is focusing on the negative side of things, you go to a networking event and somebody tells you how they haven't had a vacation in 3 years. Well, that person sounds stressed out, not happy. I don't know that I want to ever work with that person, regardless of what they do. I want to be around that person that said, hey, I'm doing some really cool work. Look at what I'm doing with this client. I'm celebrating this victory. And, oh, yeah, my wife and I are going to go on a staycation for 2 days. That sounds more like somebody I'd want to do business with. And so just changing that mindset from a kill or be killed mentality to a, there's an abundance out there for everybody as long as you're able to find it. And then also just a positive mindset. Those are the two things that I think get you through those tough weeks as well.
That's amazing advice. Yes, it's always better to work with positive people. And I think, we all have those times when we complain about the pain in the butt client. But to stay in a positive mindset most of the time is always a good approach to take. So networking in COVID. Obviously, a lot of the stuff for networking is in person. You can develop a connection with people at these bar association events and at other events, and that's all been sort of curtailed by what's going on. Have you figured out any kind of new strategies to effectively network with people not in person?
That I think is the difficult thing for everybody. Even for me, I used to go to a lot of different events, traveled around the country because I need a nationwide network of people to refer out to my clients, right? If they're in New York, they're in Miami, they still may be a client of mine, but they might want just somebody that they can go grab a drink with that's not going to try and take a picture and get an autograph. Sure. So I need people across the country. It's hard to do that when, flying to Miami 2, 3, 4 times a year probably isn't the best idea. So I've been locked up in LA for the entire pandemic. And so Zoom, I know we all have Zoom fatigue. I get it. I do too. But utilizing that as a tool has been wonderful. You don't get to meet as many new people just from the nature of it. It's kind of hard to cold call people into a Zoom meeting. But if you have those circles of influence where, for myself, it's I'm in a part of a group where we always say, hey, bring somebody new to the group. Let's switch it up. We have 5 people that are always in the same group, and we meet, once every other week during a Friday happy hour. And we always ask, hey, bring one other new person in that kind of is a like mind with us in whatever area. We don't care if we have all the lawyers on the group or if it's all insurance folks or CPAs. What we want is we just want to get to know some new people. And when it's easier for me to say, hey, I think you'd really get along with these 5 folks that I talk a lot with. You want to stop by a Zoom happy hour at 4:00? And most people say yes. And so we get about an hour to just, chit chat and catch up a little bit and get to know each other. And then it's, of course, the follow-up. I think whether you're in person or virtually, it's all about follow-up. Just because you got a business card doesn't mean that your connection to somebody just means you got hit by a business card ninja. And if you're going to get that business card, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to frame it, put it on your wall, or are you going to actually call that person and find ways that you can provide each other value, whether that's financial value, whether that's human capital, right? You're trading networking connections, or maybe it's just information. Maybe you just you're good at helping somebody build a business, and they're really good at helping you cut through the clutter on some of your stuff. There's always a way to find reciprocal value, and it's about following up. So that's the thing I would tell you. You may not meet as many new people, but I am always about quality over quantity. Quantity is great, gives you a bigger pool to fish from. But you can get a little overwhelmed when you have 45 people to follow up with. I can't say that I follow up with everybody, but the people that we actually mesh with and we're working give or take with that same clientele, I want to know them and at least be able to have a conversation about them when they're not around, to find a way to refer out a State Farm agent rather than the guy that's going to insure the private plane. You need to know both of them. And so how do you do that is you have some conversations. I can find a State Farm agent just about anywhere, but am I going to know them? Am I going to think that they're the best State Farm agent I've met and that's who should get the work that comes across my desk?
I love it. I love the positive mindset and the also the abundant mindset. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to Brandon Leopoldus, founder and CEO at Leopoldus Law. Brandon, where can people go to learn more about your firm?
Great question. LinkedIn is probably the best place to connect with me. It's Brandon Leopoldus. I'm on LinkedIn all over the place. Or you can go to my website. It's leopoldus.com, just my last name.com. And you can also find me there. I'm always happy to, if you shoot me an email, happy to talk, answer any questions, find ways to collaborate and provide as much advice as I can.
Awesome. Thanks, Brandon, for being on the show.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the ESQ Marketing Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.